Qatar has released the 8 Navy veterans who were sentenced to death on an alleged espionage charge. 7 of them have been already returned to India. Now, who are these Navy personnel? They are Captain Navtej Singh Gill, Captain Saurabh Vashisht, Commander Purendru Tiwari, Captain Birendra Kumar Verma, Commander Sugunakar Pakala, Commander Sanjeev Gupta, Command Amit Nagpal and Sailor Ragesh. All these 8 personnel held important positions in the Navy. Captain Gill was in fact awarded the President's Gold Medal for Excellence when he had graduated from the Naval Academy. He also served as an instructor at the Defence Service Staff College at Wellington in Tamil Nadu. All the Navy personnel have in fact distinguished careers in the Indian Navy, and of course now we know that 7 out of the 8 Indian Navy veterans have now landed in India. We of course heard their reactions. They did express their gratitude and thanks to the Prime Minister and the government. Meanwhile, with us on the broadcast at this point of time is Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, defence expert. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for speaking to us on NewsX. Now, of course, it was unexpected and it was a difficult result to achieve. We did not know, we didn't know that when we would wake up today in the morning, we would hear this positive and absolutely like this wonderful, wonderful news. Now, in your analysis, what could have turned the events in India's favor?
Thank you, Asavari. It's a very important question as to what actually led to this proper decision making as far as our 7 personnel are concerned, and 1 is still there. Qatar was made aware that the laws of the seas, the law and the United Nations, the various laws, international laws, as well as the humanitarian laws, all have one thing in common, that they are ratified by all countries and they are followed by the entire world. And there is a clear mention in that whenever you suspect somebody of carrying out espionage in your country, then you have to give him a fair trial, and what all the judicial guarantees have to be accorded. And when you accord judicial guarantees, it means that the matter can go into any court. They can get any lawyer. The matter can go to international court. So this aspect was very clear. And thereafter, Qatar was made to realize that what the subject about the submarine information being leaked out to their enemies, etc., was only a made-up story. That was not a true story, and it was made up. These people were awarded even by Qatari government for their good work. But suddenly, when the submarines deal was being going on and Qatar was acquiring new submarines, Qatar said that information was leaked to the Israelis. Now, this aspect has been sorted out, and we are very happy. Why Qatar straight away agreed? They could have been hard-headed, but then they realized that the country involved is India, and India does not make any loose statements and just political statements. It means what it says. The leadership of India is absolutely straightforward in this game, and they had no other choice but to follow the path of truth. And that is why Qatar has, yes, there are other interests, international interests, long-term interests also involved. There is no doubt about it. Because if Qataris had decided to carry out this action, then there will be a lot of other things which will go on against them. There are other countries which are supporting Qatar. Even Saudi Arabia had given them an advice that kindly follow the rules and be humanitarian. Your all approach should be humanitarian. And that is what moved Qatar. It is the Saudi Arabia and it is the other countries, especially Egypt as well as Saudi Arabia, that they finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and they said, and Qatar is very keen to keep a very good relation with India because there's a long-term relationship especially after what it has seen India's position in G20, that Qatar has realized that they have to now come to terms and face the reality. And that is the reality. The extremist and radical elements in Islam did try to impose this sanction, this judgment, and that they wanted to Qatar to carry out the judgment on the punishment onto the Indian sailors, officers and sailors. But I think Qatar agreed to see the right path, and that is how it is. Kudos to the Indian leadership and the stand of India in the international scene.
Joining us on the broadcast at this point of time is Mr. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for speaking to us on NewsX. Now, our Navy veterans had been imprisoned in Qatar in August of 2022 over alleged spying charges. They were in fact even sentenced to death. You know, in your analysis, what kind of provisions should be cemented for professionals?
Well,
Sir, can you hear me? All right, I think we've lost the connection over there. I'm going to propose the same question to Wing Commander Praful Bakshi. Sir, of course, you know, the same question proposed to you. Of course, our Navy veterans had been imprisoned in Qatar in August of 2022. They were in fact sentenced to death. Again, asking you the same question, what kind of provisions should be cemented for professionals so that something as severe as this does not occur in the near future?
This aspect has come up many times because Indian technicians, Indian experts, especially in the realm of defense and development, they are excelling all over. In fact, all foreign countries, especially the major countries and industries, are hiring Indian personnel. Now, there has to be some little method in this game. Indian government must make sure that any officer which goes and seeks admission or seeks a job in other countries, especially in these countries as Middle East, where the rule position is very extreme, that sort of a area, and general rule should be that they should take the clearance and they should have a proper one-to-one embassy, Indian embassy to the national government out there and Indian government. They must have a direct relationship, contact, that so many personnel are working in their companies, especially in case of defense officers. Why in case of defense officers? I'll tell you, because the defense aspect is very, very sensitive, and every time any up and down or any leakage in the defense deal amounts to spying. The spying, acquisition is absolutely very easy, and this aspect has to be very clear. And once again, the countries must, Indian diaspora which goes out, especially the defense officers, must be told that wherever you go, you must inform your central government and make sure that you get an NOC from them, then only you go. Because everything is honky-dory and it will look very silly to, keep asking. But let me tell you one thing, when it comes to push comes to shove, when it comes to the final act, then I'll tell you, there is a lot to cry about. This aspect is there. We have already Kulbhushan Yadav, or the case that we had seen how it was. This aspect is there. And there have been a number of other aspects in India. This is not the first time. In Pakistan, we had 2 or 3 of them. And one actually came from Pakistan, wrote a book that I was a spy in Pakistan. And Indian government denied me my rights. That is what he read. In Dholakwa, in front of Dholakwa, he had a 10 days sit-down strike he had. He embarrassed the government. The whole world came to know what is happening. So that sort of a thing has to be avoided. Thank God, these officers are very senior. They belong to a very respectable cadre, officers and the sailors. I personally feel they must have certain rule and clearance on this. Otherwise, embassy to embassy relationship government to government relationship must sort it out, and this should be added as an act of the service that every officer must follow.
Right, so absolutely. In fact, joining us at this point of time is Ambassador Suresh Goyal, former diplomat. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for speaking to us on NewsX. Now, this is a diplomatic triumph for India. It is the aftermath of 3 months of non-stop efforts. And in fact commitment as well. What is your analysis of the efforts that have been made by the government, and in fact also proposing another question to you, how does this diplomatic cooperation boost relations between India and Qatar?
Thank you very much. Good questions, both of them, really speaking. Let me try and see how I can address these from my knowledge about how these things happen. Now, the fact is that even 2 or 3 years ago, when these 8 Navy people were arrested, or former Navy people were arrested in Qatar, even at that time, our embassy in Doha had sought consular intervention, and they had sought to have the information on charges under which they had been arrested. But that information was not shared, clearly indicating that this was one of the very sensitive cases. It later turned out that they had been arrested on charges of espionage, but details were not shared with the Indian embassy. Now, this is a very unusual thing. Normally, in all consular matters, when the embassy intervenes, unless the relationship is not really up to the mark. But in the case of Qatar, we had good relationship, and despite all that, the information was not shared with the embassy. So that was very unusual, could suggest either of the things really. And the fact that after that, we needed to really have very high level intervention, even at the level of Prime Minister, with the Sheikh of Qatar, clearly indicated that we have had to invest a lot of our bilateral relationship into this particular case of securing the release of the Navy men. So in that sense, it's an achievement, it's an accomplishment for our bilateral relations and the diplomatic skills in using that relationship. Once it has happened, I don't think we have the details of the negotiations with the Qatari side as to what was discussed and how was discussed. It would be interesting to find later on at some stage, if it becomes possible at all, to know the details of negotiations, but I guess it's going to be difficult really. Yes.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.